Okay, you got a plan, or shall I just stay duck and cover?
My plan was to drive us away.
Well, your plan sucks.
Hi everyone, I'm Dom Griffin, I'm a film critic and you're watching The Armchair Auteur. This is an ongoing video series I do where we talk about new movies, old movies, screenplay analysis, television series reviews, that sort of thing. So if you like movies or movie adjacent popular culture and you'd like to see somebody pick those things apart, this would be a good time to subscribe. Today I'm reviewing Black Widow, the first MCU movie to hit theaters in well over a year since the pre-pandemic COVID times. This is a movie that should have come out a year ago, but if we're being honest with ourselves, it really should have come out like 10 years ago. Set sometime between the end of Captain America Civil War but before Avengers Infinity War, Scarlett Johansson, who has literally been in the Marvel movies since the second Iron Man film, finally gets her own time in the spotlight after having, you know, died in Avengers Endgame. To be fair to the spoiler-phobes and Disney who would come to my house right now and bludgeon me to death with big fucking rocks if I ruin any twists, I will refrain from discussing the plot specifics other than to say what you can see from the trailers, that this is a movie about Natasha dealing with unfinished business from her past, which includes the introduction of Yelena Belova, another Black Widow tethered to Natasha, played by Florence Pugh. David Harbour also appears as Red Guardian, as does Rachel Weisz, as an important figure to both widows. Saying much more than that would get me shot, maybe, probably. But I will say that this was the Marvel movie I was looking forward to the absolute least, and I ended up enjoying it more than I have a Marvel movie in a minute, at least. It is much more in the vein of the Captain America movies, where it's a little bit grittier and more down-to-earth and grounded, more shoot-'em-up, fisticuffs, car chase than like space god, glowy orb type shit. So I'll start with the positive stuff. In an interview, Kevin Feige compared this movie, Black Widow, to Better Call Saul, the AMC TV series starring Bob Odenkirk that is a prequel of sorts to Breaking Bad. And when I first saw this quote, I thought about fighting Kevin Feige. Thought about just punching his fucking teeth out. But now that I've seen the movie, I kind of see what he was trying to say. This is, in fact, a prequel movie, but it's not like a basic Black Widow origin story. It's not what a lot of the Marvel solo adventure films are, which are awkward carbon copies of Iron Man, but like with different characters. It's pretty unique, I would say, within the MCU paradigm anyway. It does function as its own story that is worth more than just filling in gaps in Natasha's backstory. It's not like, you know, something like Solo where you watch it and every other scene is a character turning to the camera and being like, oh, that's how he got his name, or that's how he got the ship. Like, it's not like that. It's actually like its own standalone story for the most part. And one thing I really want to get out of the way is that this movie is so much better than Captain Marvel, like it's not even funny, because I felt like Captain Marvel, one of my first videos in this channel ever is a video about Captain Marvel that I'll link above. It's kind of a cringy video because it's like one of my first ones, whatever. But in that video, one of the things that irritated me so much about the movie is that I felt like it was so like empty and hollow and doing this sort of like surface level corporate pandering version of girl power that people really bought into, and because there wasn't any other choice, right? I mean, like, there's not a lot of female fronted superhero movies even to this day, and the ones that do exist are all period pieces for some weird reason. It just really bothered me. This movie feels like a movie Marvel should have released years ago. Like, the way it deals with the perpetual exploitation of young women by like the state and like culture and like everything is like very interesting. And the movie gets to a lot of really interesting and cathartic beats that you can only get to by genuinely putting characters through the ringer and genuinely engaging with some of these conflicts and some of these difficult things. Whereas I feel like Captain Marvel was just like, oh, like guys tell her to smile, but she can fly a plane.
Do you think Margaret Thatcher had girl power?
Yes, of course.
Do you think she effectively utilized girl power by funneling money to illegal paramilitary death squads in Northern Ireland?
It just felt like a fucking car commercial at times, you know what I mean? Like an ad for something. And this feels more like a genuine drama, like an actual sort of 90s throwback action thriller. And I don't know, I really appreciated that. I will say that at first the movie feels small in a way that pretty much every Marvel movie post any of the Avengers team-up films feels, one of the downsides to getting audiences used to seeing Marvel movies where you could have a bunch of characters all in the frame at the same time is that after that, when you have to go back to a movie about one person on one adventure by themselves, it feels like diminishing returns. And I think Black Widow sidesteps that by being so different in tone to most of the Marvel movies we've seen in the last few years. Like, yes, at first I did think they probably could have made this a TV miniseries. Like, this definitely could have been more of a show on Disney Plus than some of the things we've already seen on Disney Plus. But in true 90s throwback fashion, as the action progressed, it did get larger in scope, which is always nice to see in a movie. And it is like a big budget thing. Like, it is like a big, broad movie. Like, at times it kind of reminded me of like 90s Pierce Brosnan Bond, where some of the stuff was so big and over the top that it's a little bit goofy, but it's grounded in realism enough to where you don't want to like openly laugh at it. In terms of the actual acting work, Scarlett Johansson is like fine, like she's pretty good. I think she's pretty talented in most things, but I feel like other movies have had her deliver better performances as Natasha than this one, her first time getting the star. I thought that was a little bit strange. But part of that's because it's not really her movie. It much more feels like Yelena Belova's movie, and as such, Florence Pugh steals the show, like in every scene. She's like immediately delightful, really immediately becomes a character you want to see more of, which is like obviously necessary for these movies because everyone that signs a contract is signing one for multiple pictures and television appearances. But she's great. She's super killer, like fits in really well. Like, it's like funny, but not too funny, and like serious, but not like drab. Like, really, really good stuff from her. Fantastic. And David Harbour, fantastic. Completely redeems himself from the terrible film that was his version of Hellboy. And he's like the kind of guy that like should obviously be in the MCU. Like, he perfectly fits like this sort of aesthetic and shtick and stuff. He's very good in the movie, and so is Rachel Weisz. Like, they both deliver really good performances. And like, it's a strong enough cast to where some of the little elements of the movie that feel like retreads of Marvel stuff don't feel as much like retreads because the characters are pretty well drawn and the performances are very, very strong. Ray Winstone is in this as like one of the villains, and Ray Winstone is like genuinely a menacing figure in movies, and you would think that him in a Marvel movie, some of that menace would get ripped away, but no, he's like one of the most like fucked up, scary people in any of these movies. Like, he's literally not redeemable in any way. He's like one of the only villains the MCU has that's just like a piece of shit that you just fully hate, that like you can't really go write sweet fan fiction about. I really appreciated that. And one of the things I also liked is that it actually does just feel like its own movie. It tethers to stuff that you can pick up in other series or future movies and stuff, and it fits into the paradigm just fine. But it functions well on its own. Like, it didn't feel like people needed to know a bunch of stuff about Black Widow lore to really get it. It didn't feel like it was just a long pilot for something else. Like, it was a pretty satisfying story as it exists. Like, if you don't stay through the credits for the post-credits scene, it's fine. Like, some of these movies I always feel like if I don't see the little thing at the end, what was the point? I didn't need to see the little thing at the end of this one. I was pretty good. But, you know, I do have my complaints. One major complaint that I put into almost every review I think I've ever made of this channel.
Say the line, Bart!
It just feels a little too long. Yay! I know, I always say that. I say that about everything, but this movie comes in at like a little over 2 hours, and it definitely feels like it should have been like an hour 40, maybe like an hour 45. There's a lot of trimmable fat on the bones of this movie, but all of the trimmable fat is primarily, obviously, comedic stuff. This is one of the darker MCU movies. And I don't mean dark in the way Endgame was dark, where it was like so maudlin and operatic. I mean dark in the sense that like it wrestles with some like tough shit, and it's like pretty grisly at times. And specifically like psychologically dark stuff. Like, it really tries to unpack a lot of messed up family dysfunction stuff. A lot of stuff that I don't think the other movies ever really try to do. And I really appreciated that because the cast is game and up for it and treats it like it's like a real movie and not like a goofy thing for kids. So it's good. But because it's so dark, I feel like everyone involved felt like they had to lean into the comic relief side of the MCU a little bit too heavily. Something that it's like a meme at this point that like every film bro in the world thinks that the Marvel movies are too jokey or too quippy. I know I complain about every character in these movies talking like fucking Spider-Man, but it's a thing. Here, the comedy is like genuinely funny, which is nice for a change. There's just like slightly too much of it. There are just too many moments, particularly in the second act, where the characters are leaning into the stuff that you can tell the crowd is going to eat up because it's humorous, to kind of deflect away from how heady and like difficult the material is. And it does so in a way that makes you feel like you're just leaving for like an easier movie. And I think they should have pulled back on that a little bit and just let the people stew with this stuff. The third act has plenty of fun, over the top things to like make up for the fact that it's kind of dark and sad, but we shouldn't hide from that stuff in these movies. Like, it's okay. It's about adults who are spies who kill people. Like, just roll with that. You don't have to keep joking all the time. But I do understand that if you took all the narrative beats for the story and plucked out most of the comedy, it would just kind of be that movie Red Sparrow with Jennifer Lawrence, which is utterly humorless and really, really uninteresting to watch. So maybe Kevin Feige knows more about life than I do. So normally I like to end my videos with saying whether or not I think you should see this movie, but this is a Marvel movie, and it's the first Marvel movie to come out after the pandemic, that is, we're not still fully out of, but it's, movies are back. People are gonna go see this movie. If you took the time to watch this video, I assume you're gonna go watch Black Widow. You don't need me to tell you it's okay to go see Black Widow. But if you were on the fence, if you have been suffering from Marvel fatigue and you aren't interested in leaving the house to go see another one of these things, I will still say you should see it, but maybe just get it on Disney Plus, like maybe just watch it at home. Of the movies I have seen at a theater since getting to go back to theaters, like for press screenings and stuff, this movie seems like it should be one that is like you have to see it on the big screen, but I think it's probably fine on the small screen. Like, the action's big and it looks good and stuff, and I didn't really talk about that much in the video, but the action looks good. Most of the fighting looks nice. It's like a good-looking movie, but it didn't scream multiplex to me. It did not scream AMC Limax. Like, it just felt like a movie that I could watch at home and get pretty much the same experience. And now that we're moving into this world where we are going to see more day-and-date releases, we are going to see more movies coming out in theaters and on streaming platforms at home, we are going to have to ask ourselves as consumers, like, do I need to go to the theater for this, or can I watch this in my underoos? And this is definitely an underoo movie. If you want to watch this at home in your not pants, you can do that. But if you do go to the multiplex with some friends or whatever the hell people do, you'll probably have a good time as well. I dug it. I did not think I was going to dig it. I definitely am not looking forward to any other Marvel movie in the next year, really, until I guess the Spider-Man one could be fun. But like, I don't care about Shang-Chi. I do not care about the Eternals at all. But this, like, it was good. Like, maybe if I just go into these movies with supremely low expectations, I'll have an amazing time. So that's what I'm going to do going forward if I have to keep engaging with these. But good stuff. I just want to get this out of the way. I don't understand why Scarlett Johansson didn't get to do this 10 years ago. Like, it just would have made so much sense. It's really weird that we had to wait this long to get, like, her own movie when she's, like, one of the OGs of this whole thing. I don't know. Silly. Don't like it. But pretty good flick. Those are my feelings about Black Widow, which is out next Wednesday in theaters and on Disney Plus's Premiere Access. Is that what they call it? The thing where you pay for Disney Plus and then you pay more for the actual movie. They have that. So I don't know, if you and some people want to hang out at the crib and do this, like, do it. I think it's worth it. If you like the video, please give it a thumbs up. It tells YouTube that you like the video, and then YouTube, they add it to like they keep like this ledger of people who are good at stuff, and they put you in it, and they send you like fruit baskets and stuff. And I don't have a lot of fruit in my apartment right now, so please hit that thumbs up. If you have any thoughts about Black Widow, Marvel, ScarJo, if you want to talk about why Florence Pugh is still dating Zach Braff, isn't that weird? You can do that in the comments below. I will respond to every one of them, as I always do. And if you haven't subscribed, if you got this far in the video and you liked it, hit the subscribe button, hit the little bell icon so you get notifications when I put out new videos. You will always know. You will always be the first to see when I have new content, which is often. So yeah. Thank you for watching. Everyone's being good to yourselves and each other, staying safe, and I will see you in the next video.